Hey YouTube, how you doing? This is Real Talk, and I'm coming to you with a new episode. And in this episode, we're going to cover the TV series Bewitched, and my thoughts on that TV series, and how most TV series are corrupted. I'll show you a couple of slides and the links of and how they connect the dots. I'll connect the dots for you and put in my views on it. So let's get started. Okay, here we have Bewitched, which basically is a witchcraft program. It is completely disgusting and horrible, and they were promoting witchcraft, and America seemed to like it because it's satanic in nature. And just about everybody in the original cast died of cancer. Elizabeth Montgomery died of cancer. Agnes Moorehead died of cancer. Dick Sargent died of cancer, or AIDS maybe, because he was flaming. George Tobias, which is Abner Kravitz, the dude across the street, he died from cancer. Alice Pierce, Gladys Kravitz from across the street, she died from cancer. The original Gladys Kravitz. Dick York died broke and penniless because of his back problems. He had a lot of back problems, and for the first 4.5 years he was doing it, but he was in pain most of the time. Then he got hooked on prescription medications, and toward the end of the 5th season he couldn't do it anymore. So after he made the network tons of money and the powers that be tons of money, they said, well, he's a piece of junk no more, so let's just get rid of him because he's kind of in the way now. He's not usable no more, so let's just kick him to the curb, which is what they did. It's kind of what they do to us, once you're unusable, like at your job, when you're old, and instead of paying you the pension that they owe you, they want to see if they can start, ragging on you and riding you until you quit and make you quit, so that you forfeit your pensions. That's kind of how they operate. Anyway, these are the guest stars that appeared on this witchcraft show. So whether known or unknown, they participated in witchcraft. Okay. And we're going to start with Bernard Fox. He came out in the Andy Griffith Show. Alice Ghostly, she came out in Grease, the movie. Paul Lynde, he came out in Dean Martin's Celebrity Roast, the Paul Lynde Show, and Hollywood Squares was the ones. And then he came out in Love American Style as well. Bernard Fox was Dr. Bombay. Alice Ghostly was Esmeralda. Paul Lynde was Uncle Arthur. Okay. So here we have Dr. Bombay and Andy Griffith Land, which everybody seems to think that, oh, Andy Griffith is so great. It's one of the best shows. It's so clean and clean. Sure, it's clean. My foot it's clean. Here he is, and he brought his witchcraft. Actually, I think the Andy Griffith Show was before Bewitched, or they might have started at the same time. But needless to say, they were exchanging witchcraft amongst themselves. On the left, we have a Satan worshiper, Hope Summers, a scumbag. And she came out in a movie called Rosemary's Baby in the 60s. I forget what year. But in this particular scene, and I'll put a link in the description so you can go check that scene out, she's actually worshiping Satan in there. Scumbag. And, we're tripping. They're saying what they're saying, but we are tripping because we are tin hat conspiracy theorists. Right. And here she is. And the Andy Griffith Show, she came out in the Pickle Story. She came out in several stories, and she was always a instigator and a prick. I never did like her. And I knew there was a reason I didn't like her. She was a scumbag, even in the Andy Griffith land. On the left, we have Barney doing sorcery with Opie, and 3 Wishes for Opie, what was the name of the episode. So let's read what God has to say about it in Deuteronomy 18:9-12. When you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practice of those nations. So he was telling the Israelites, don't participate in the evilness of the nation. There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering. Anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes or interprets omens or a sorcerer, which Barney's doing, or a charmer or a medium or a necromancer or one who inquires of the dead, which is fortune tellers and spirit guides. And when you go to those, they communicate with the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. So it's very clear. God does not want us to do sorcery, yet these vatos are doing sorcery. Barney over there all goofy, and he's like, ooh, all goofy, and he's funny, yeah, but he's doing sorcery on the show. Andy Griffith, he's over there with Mrs. Satan worshiper over there with her pickles, and they're doing it because of the money. Because it was CBS that had them doing all of this, but they agreed to it. They consented to it. They were down with the program. You know what I mean? So that's where that's at. And let's see the rest of the guest stars and the associated shows that they appeared on, either before or after Bewitched. Bernie Coppell, he came out in Get Smart and Love Boat and a few other ones. I didn't go over the whole list because, I can't fit them all on the screen, so I just picked a couple. Parley Bear, he was the next door neighbor of Ozzie and Harriet, and then he came out on the Andy Griffith Show as the mayor for, I think, in season 2. Charles Lane, he came out on Andy Griffith Show, Petticoat Junction, and a slew of other TV shows, which I'm not going to mention. Edward Andrews, Twilight Zone, 16 Candles, and a gang of other stuff. He had a long list. Dave Madden, which is, he came out in Laughing first, and then Partridge Family, and a bunch of other stuff too. But not before he showed up at the Witchcraft show to check in, so that he can tell them, hey, I'm down with the Witchcraft, so sign me up for the other stuff. Oh, okay. Okay, now we know that you're down and that you're a warlock. We're going to send you out there to make some cheese, some money. And Jack Cassidy, he was in Columbo and a couple other things, and that was David Cassidy's father, which happened to be married to Shirley Jones, which is a freak, because she came out in her memoirs that homeboy was a freaky deaky. He swung both ways, so he was a flaming and he liked women, and and then he turned her out. That's why she's all tricked out now. So the lovable mom from Partridge Family that we all saw on TV is nothing like what she is on TV. She's a freaky deaky. We got Will Greer, the grandpa from the Waltons. So he's a warlock. We got Arthur Peterson, the crazy grandpa colonel, the one that kept thinking he was in the army. He's from Soap. Soap is straight demonic. That whole series is demonic. Jonathan Harris, the troublemaker in Lost in Space, the dude that was hanging out with a robot, always trying to sabotage stuff. Arlene Martell, and I believe that's the one where Spock has to go home and marry somebody, and he had to get back home, and he was supposed to marry her, but she didn't want him. She came out in Star Trek. Danny Bonaducci, he came out in Partridge Family and a bunch of other stuff, and he had to check in with the Witchcraft folks too before he got in there. He had to go on the Witchcraft episode, and so that he let them know that he's game for whatever. And they said, "Okay, you're game. All right, get down. We'll throw some money your way, and then when you get up, once we're done with you, we're gonna wreck your career and not hire you no more and have you on the skids, living like a bum, having you fiended," which is what happened. Maria McCormick, Brady Bunch. She was on the Happy Days too, and a few other ones, but she had a hard time. Gordon Jump, he was on WKRP. He was on the first episode of the Partridge Family. He was on a bunch of those early shows. Gordon Jump was. Grace Lee Whitney, which is Yeoman. I forget what her name. Yeoman somebody other. She came out on Star Trek. Felix Silla, which was Tweaky, came out on Buck Rogers in 25th Century. So he was a warlock, and then he came out in the Buck Rogers series in the 80s. Julie Newmar, she came out in Batman. Peter Lawford came out in Fantasy Island and a gang of other stuff. It was too long to list. Alan Oppenheimer, the $6 Million Man, which is basically the transgender movement. You know, that's the, mixing man with machine, so that's where that's at. Nina Talbot came out of Love American Style, Partridge Family, Soap, and a bunch of other stuff. Adam West was Batman, Cape Crusader, Flamin', Warlock. Richard Dreyfuss came out American Graffiti and a bunch of other stuff. A lot of other movies. Henry Jones came out Mary Tyler Moore Show and Partridge Family as well, and a bunch of other ones. Isabel Sanford, she came out in Jeffersons. She, Witch first and then Jeffersons later on down the line. William Shallard was just, he never had his own series. He just came out in everything, and I think one of the main ones that he was on was going to be the Patty Duke Show. But he came out on a bunch of other stuff. I think he came out in $6 Million Man as well. Stuart Margolin. Now, Stuart Margolin came out in the Partridge Family, Love American Style, because that was his brother that created, plus he was one of the bit players in between the session, between the stories, and the Rockford Files, and a bunch of other stuff. Edward Platt came out on Dick Van Dyke Show and Get Smart. Cesar Romero was I Love Lucy, and he was the Joker in the Batman series of the 60s. And Tom Bosley came out in Happy Days and a bunch of other stuff. Okay. But look how they all checked in with the Witchcraft first. They had to check in with the Witchcraft first, let them know that we're down with the Witchcraft, because they were going to get money. They were going to get IOUs, but we didn't know about it back then, but they were going to get IOUs, and we're all set. And everything started with Desilu. That's why he was dressed up in voodoo, because his main song Babalu was calling like some voodoo gods. I forget what it's, the spirit of something or other. It was like Santeria. When Lucy was having her baby, like for real, like when she was pregnant on the show, he was dressed up as a voodoo, scaring everybody in the hospital. But they ultimately had the Desilu Studios. And here are the shows from the Desilu Studios. All satanic. The Jack Benny Program, I Love Lucy, Our Miss Brooke, The Danny Thomas Show, Private Secretary, December Brides, The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp, Meet McGraw, The Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, Whirlybirds, The Real McCoys, The Ann Southern Show, The Untouchables, The Andy Griffith Show, The Lineup, Sheriff of Cochise, Harrigan and Son, My Three Sons, The Dick Van Dyke Show, The Lucy Show, You Don't Say, My Favorite Martian, Gomer Pyle USMC, I Spy, Hogan's Heroes, Star Trek, Family Affair. And there was a couple of more at the bottom that I couldn't fit in there. So most of the shows went through the satanic studio of Desilu, and they were satanic as well. I mean, they didn't look like it, but yeah, they were down with all the Satanism and all the corruption behind the scenes, of course. And here's proof. And I Love Lucy, season 1, episode 7, she had a seance, and this one dude was trying to hire Ricky for whatever, and she had a supposed seance, and she thought he was trying to communicate with her husband, or with his wife, when in fact it was a dog. But nevertheless, here they are having a seance in their house. Witchcraft. The Danny Thomas Show, Danny Meets Andy Griffith, that's on YouTube. And this is what Opie says. I want you to arrest her, give her a fair trial, then hang her. And then the audience laughs. And I have an audio that is in my personal library because they won't play this online. So here, take a listen. Hopefully it'll pick up. Here, let me raise the volume up here real quick. That way you can hear it for yourself.
I want you to arrest her, Pa, and we'll give her a fair trial and hang her.
No, boy, you can't take it out on Miss Bollifer just 'cause you feel bad. She didn't mean it. I expect it was just Wilfred's turn to go. And we have to learn to live with our sorrows, boy. I learned that when you was just a little bitty speck of a baby.
Okay, he was referring to the fact that this woman came and stepped on his turtle and didn't even say he was sorry. So this is in reference to Andy Griffith being a corrupted official. Of course, Andy Griffith said no, that he's not going to do it, but not before little Opie, little warlock Opie, was saying, well, hey, you got the power, so you get to do it. And isn't that where we're at now, how the police are super corrupted? Now, not all police are corrupted, but there's many that have fallen prey to this issue. Moving on. The Dick Van Dyke Show, Season 2, Episode 20, It May Look Like a Walnut. Okay, in this episode, Danny Thomas actually stars in this. I mean, he actually guest stars in the show. And this is a spooky one where Rob has a dream of Danny Thomas and something about Twilo, and he had eyes in the back of his head, and it wasn't really scary, but the premise was that it was supposed to be scary. And it turns out that Danny Thomas was linked to the Andy Griffith Show, and it was also linked to this show, because Danny Thomas started Andy Griffith. Lucy started Danny started Andy, Danny started Dick Van Dyke through Maury Amsterdam. They were in shows, and then it was like a spin-off. And Desilu created the Dick Van Dyke Show. It also created Star Trek. And in Star Trek, I'll put a link in the description to the Star Trek episode, where this one is when they're in this was the first episode with Captain Pike, where they're trying to trick him, and he says, we're in a menagerie. And then the girl says, well, they can't make you do anything that you don't want, but they'll trick you and punish you when you don't obey. Isn't that the system we're at? If you don't buy the car insurance, we're going to punish you. We're going to arrest you, and we're going to steal your property, and we're going to lock you up, and we're going to do all this evil to you. And it tells us in 18 USC 241, conspiracy against rights, that any two people that come to threaten, coerce, or make any type of those actions against us is violating federal law. And they're not allowed to do that. But that's what they do. Right? So basically this is the precursor in the 60s of the matrix that we're living in right now. Happy Days. Happy Days was made by Paramount. And Paramount ultimately, in the 70s, right around when Lucille Ball divorced Desi, she took control because she was the white lady and he was the Latino, so obviously he wasn't going to get his fair cut, so she kicked him to the curb, took control of Desilu, and then sold it for, I don't know, $8, $10, $13 million. I forget what it was. I forget what the actual number is. I'd have to look it up. But needless to say, when she sold Desilu, it turned into Paramount. Now, Paramount had a slew of these shows in the 70s. And this included Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy. I mean, I don't know, Joni Loves Chachi, The Brady Bunch, I think Gilligan's Island. There was a slew of them that came from the studio, but it was Desilu. It was still Desilu. It was just the old Desilu Studios that got turned around into Paramount. But I don't know if you can see, but on the back of this dude's jacket, it says Demons, and it has a big tail, and then you see that scary looking cat right behind his head. Okay, that's that. And remember that Tom Bosley was in the Happy Days, which he made his appearance on the Witchcraft show back in the 60s. because he had to check in with they have to check in with the witchcraft first. And here it's the theme is still going, because this was a Halloween episode and it was a satanic episode. Tweaking, which is Silva, which came out in Buck Rogers in 25th Century, and this is the episode where the space vampire is trying to chase Woman and suck her up. This is where they corner Buck Rogers after the spaceship crashes and that she had a big old hole in the back. And there's a space vampire attacking with Buck with all the zombie dudes, because he done sucked the blood out of the other vatos and viejas walking around there. But again, another satanic. See, they took the witchcraft from previous and brought it. They brought it forward. Here's the Bionic Woman, which was a spin-off of the Bionic Man, which is basically the transhuman agenda. This is in Kill Oscar, Part 3, where the dude was pissed off at the OSI. He was working there, but they weren't trying to pay attention to his ideas. So he vowed to get back at Oscar Goldman, which was the head of the OSI, and him and Rudy Wells, and they made Steve Austin. They mixed the man with computers. And this is the episode of The Weather Machine. Well, guess what? There's truth in TV shows and movies. That's the harp that we are suffering now, so they can manipulate the weather, which they told us back in the 70s. That they were going to do it, and they're doing it. This is a bonus. So there you go. And here is Mr. Flaming Dude. He's gone already, and I don't feel sorry for him, because I just don't. I'm sorry. I mean, I know I'm being judgmental, and really I'm not being judgmental, because when God says don't do it, he means don't do it. But that's everybody's decision. That's their own decision. Here's Elizabeth Montgomery with Dick Sargent at the gay festival, right before he died, I think, in L.A., and they were like coming out. It was the coming out time, the Babylon time when they're coming out. But notice how the gay was attached to witchcraft, which is what we've been saying the whole time. That that the gay agenda, the transhumanist agenda, the lesbians, it just Babylon all over again, and it's all because of that. And I never made this connection before, and it was so simple. I can't believe that I missed it. But anything that's attached to Egypt is evil, is satanic. Why did Moses have to go rescue the Israelites out of Egypt? They were enslaved for 400 years, which is basically the way they got us now, but in a different form. We're all working for this thing right here. And there's really no other way around it. Unless you have riches, but see, you're not allowed riches because the riches brings corruption. But see, God told us the way to do it. We need to work for this thing and then give it to them. And a lot of us are going to say, well, that's not right. Why should I work for free and pay taxes? So they get to live off of my labor and I get to, do the blood, sweat, and tears. Well, I must admit that I agree with you that that's not fair, and I would rather not be a slave to the system. However, God's command is to do this, and I believe, and this is just my theory, because if you try to hang on to this thing, you're hanging on to Satan. This thing right here called the dollar bill, in God we trust. They're not talking about Almighty God. They're talking about Satan. Look at that eye staring at you with an Egyptian pyramid. What is an Egyptian pyramid doing on the back of our so-called money, which is an IOU, which is a promissory note, which is a way for them to steal our labor for free. They control all the prices. They control all the gas, the power. They control it. It was stuff that we all know. It's not like we don't know that. But because a lot of people are trying to look for freedom and trying to get out, but only to find that they're not going to get away. You're not going to get away with it. You know, God has told us specifically that money is the root of all kinds of evil. So everything's tied to witchcraft. So this is straight tied to witchcraft. What do you think the owl's about? There's a little owl on the back of the dollar. I mean, if you look at all the dollar stuff, I mean, we all know this now. It wasn't as apparent a few years ago, but you know, we're all looking into all these things. Bottom line is anything anything that's attached to Egypt is satanic. It's evil. Well, all I know is this. The ones that are going to actually see this and have an open mind to receive this information will actually get to see it and say, wow. Then I'm going to have the negative people that know that I'm telling the truth, and they're just going to come and hate just to be hating, just to be talking negative. I'm going to go ahead and put links in the description to a bunch of various sources so that you can go check out those sources, and they'll take you directly to what I was saying in this video. Because they're posted here on YouTube. Like I say, I kind of want to use video, but I have to shoot it myself, and I'm not equipped to do that at this time. As a matter of fact, okay, this is the first time I'm going to say this, and you know, it embarrasses me somewhat, but it is what it is, and it may sound hypocritical, but I assure you, this is not what it's about. But here goes. I never really ask for anything. However, it seems that YouTube, from whatever little pennies they're throwing my way, they're skimming from the skim. They skipped a whole entire month. It was about $100. I'm just going to tell you what it was. It was about $100, and they just clipped me. So they felt that it was okay to just rob me of those funds, and then they went and played with the books. Because now when I checked on the AdSense, they fudged the numbers to make it look like a certain way, but I know that's incorrect because I was keeping track. I got my records, but I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to fight it. What I'm getting at is this. I wanted to set up a PayPal account so that I may receive donations. Now, you don't have to donate, and I'm not going to be pestering you guys about it, but probably in my next video, next couple of videos, or you know, next week sometime, when I set it up, or I may come back and put the link in the description. It's not going to have it immediately, but maybe later, once I get everything all set up. If you guys feel that any of my videos are helpful and you want to help me out with whatever, please do so, and it will be greatly appreciated. That'll help me with, you know, whatever I need to do to keep, you know, these videos coming. You know what I mean? Anyway, in conclusion, everything's tied to everything. I mean, this was like a shortcut. I'm not trying to make this video long, but I think it's already long. I think it's already passing like 20, 30 minutes. And I noticed that the shorter the videos, the better off they are, but I get long-winded sometimes. But I try to pack a lot of information, you know, when I do these things. It's all over the place. They all had to go through the witchcraft camp, before they came out and did other things, but it's all tied back to the same thing, which is what we've been saying. I got some other information that I'm going to post as well. I wasn't going to cover this, but I think I will, just because you know, something's telling me to. But I'm getting that together. Anyway, I hope this video helps some of y'all, and just let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Like I say, if y'all can help me out with whatever, that'd be great. I'm embarrassed to ask, but I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of like in need right about now. And I'm gonna end this video with this. I'm still trying to figure out how I can exist and not trade with Federal Reserve notes. I still haven't figured it out. So if anybody has any ideas on how to do that, I mean, There's ways to do it under the corporate credit and all that stuff, but we'll still be trading those reserve notes. So see, it winds up being the same thing. You know, the whole thing is according to the Constitution, before this Federal Reserve stuff showed up in the 30s, everything was gold and silver. It's, you know, it's written all over the place in the Federal Constitution and the Constitution of each of the countries or the states, their states/countries. But anyway, if anybody got any ideas on how to move forward without Federal Reserve notes, I would be very curious to know what that is. Obviously, barter, but how do you get something from nothing? You see, because some are going to say, well, you're saying that you know, you're not supposed to use money, but yet you're asking money at the end of it, because how else are we going to trade? I got to trade. I got to pay bills. I got to pay light bills. I got to, you know, buy food. I got to, you know, put gas in the ride. I got to, you know, clothes, and, you know, how am I going to do that? You see what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. You know, all of us are kind of up against it because, you know, we're pressured into doing it a certain way because we don't have the answers to do it the other way, the old way, basically. Anyway, I'll pray on it. This is going to wrap it up for this video, and I hope this helped you guys, and I'm going to catch up with you guys next time.